This is the Vic Feazell Show podcast, sponsored by Moroso Wood-Fired Pizzeria, Pinewood Coffee Roasters, and the law offices of Vic Feazell.
So here's what was going on, though, Vic, in the background. So when Henry was away, that missing person report was put out, and Henry became a suspect pretty quick. And I think it was just because, well, who were the last people to see Kate Rich? Well, back in May, this Henry guy and this, Frida Powell lived there. Maybe he's the one who did it. And what they do is they pull Henry's record and they see that he had that murder of his mom. So instantly, while Henry's away, he becomes suspect number one, dude. And what adds insult to injury is when his car breaks down, they start going through it. And those San Bernardino?
Mm-hmm. Out in Needles, California.
Yep. So they reach out to Sheriff Conway, because that's obviously where he was living with Reuben Moore, was that zone. So Conway's zone.
That's what gives Conway the scent.
Right. So instantly Conway's going, oh, you found an abandoned car. Well, so it already, the focus was on Henry just because of his record, but now it's, oh man, he's missing. Oh, and he abandons a car. And then they start going through the car, and they think they see blood on the passenger side seat.
Uh-huh.
And so instantly the car's taken to an impound, and they're just going through this thing. They get an order to actually start going through it and finding all the evidence they can.
Oh, yeah, they find blood.
Mm-hmm.
They find a pair of glasses that they say look like Kate's glasses.
Right.
They find a knife.
A bunch of knives.
A bunch of knives.
Yep.
It was a kitchen set.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah, it was. They weren't like throwing knives or ninja knives or anything like that. It was kitchen knives.
Ninja knives?
And then there's something else. There's something I would like to know from Phil Ryan or from the records, is what time did Henry get back to the house of prayer with these people on October 17th, and what did he do?
I didn't mean to cut you off on that part, but you're right, something weird happens.
Something weird happened. Weird. Now, did it happen after Henry was back or while they were on the road or what? Because we know that on October the 17th, the policeman in Needles, San Bernardino, gets a call from Sheriff Conway at 11 at night.
Yep.
Telling him that Kate Rich's house burned down.
Yes.
But he doesn't say when it burned down. That's what bugs me about these police reports we're looking at. I mean, they'll give you a little bit of detail, but then they'll leave out a pertinent fact.
Yeah.
Now, and so much time has gone by. Are we going to be able to find the fire marshal's report? We're going to be able to tell when this house burned down.
Yeah.
Because it's just weird
that,
Henry and Frida go from California to Ringold to take care of Kate Rich.
Yeah.
Sent there by O'Bara, Kate Rich's daughter. They get there, they find her living in squalor. No food in the house, nothing to eat, animals in the house, crap on the floor. And then the family shows up and throws them out after Becky writes that letter.
Right.
Okay? Then she shows up, then Kate goes missing.
Yep.
On the 16th of September.
Yep.
And then by the 17th of October, her house is burned down.
Yeah.
Either on the 17th or the 16th. If it was the 16th, we know Henry couldn't have been involved. If it was the 17th, it had to have been way before 11 o'clock, because that's when Conway got around to calling the police in Needles.
Right.
And that wouldn't have been his first action. Wow, Kate Rich's house burned down, so I'm going to call the cop in California who has the car.
Yeah,
no,
man.
I don't think so. That's something you do follow up further down your checklist, you know?
Yeah, man.
So there's something really, really weird about that.
Really weird. So, interesting. But, so Henry's back for one day, October 18th. He then gets arrested on that Maryland is a probation violation. And so he is brought into the Montague Sheriff's Department. And at that point, he starts getting questioned for the first time about Kate Rich.
Now, was this about the firearm, or was this for the probation revocation?
So he gets brought in about the probation violation.
Okay.
But while he's in there in Montague, they start asking about Kate Rich. And they say, hey, we want to go ahead and search your home. So Henry says, yeah, it's fine.
Sure,
and
go ahead.
He signs off, says, yeah, I mean, go
Yeah,
ahead.
go ahead.
You can search my house, do whatever you want to do. And they do, and from what I understand, nothing's found.
All they find is a piece of paper that's got his full name on it.
Yeah.
And that way they can run a better records check on him.
So to further, on the 25th, they want more from him. So October 25th, they now want a blood draw from him. And they get it, and they determine his blood type to be A. And so what I think they were looking for at this point, Vic, is, Conway knows about the car that's busted down. They know about the blood that's found.
No, it's got a blood stain on the seat.
And they want to try to figure out what it is.
Yes.
So what did they find about the blood on the seat?
Well, it took them a little while, because the lab had to look at it. Mm-hmm. But the blood on the seat came back as type A.
So it just could have been his blood.
Henry was type A.
Right. And
Kate Rich.
Yeah, do we know Kate Rich?
You know what it is.
I do. I just like when you say things. So her blood type is brought back, and hers is O.
Type O. Type O. Henry is type A. She's type O. The blood on the seat is type A.
Right.
So it's not Kate Rich.
So it's not Kate Rich.
It's not Kate Rich. And guess what?
What?
The glasses weren't Kate Rich's either.
They were not. Oh,
the prescription didn't match.
It didn't.
No.
It didn't.
And the knives. They tested all the knives.
And guess what?
No blood.
No blood was found on any of them.
No blood.
For this being some kind of murder vehicle fleeing the scene, there's no forensic evidence whatsoever.
It looks like 3 strikes to me.
They found like a bunch of hair in there, and it was like a dog's hair.
Yeah, the hair didn't match. Yeah.
So it's kind of like, oh, all right.
Yeah. And Henry collected junk. If there was something in his car, it didn't mean it was his. If he found something, he took it. He was like a homeless guy with a shopping basket,
Right, especially kitchen knives. I can probably get a couple bucks for those.
I can get a couple bucks for those. I can sell that. Oh, a pair of glasses. I can sell those, or I might need those someday.
There you go.
That was Henry. So he was a junk collector. I was going to use a phrase you probably wouldn't know. He was a rag and bone man.
What?
Yeah, the rag and bone man.
Tell
back in the old days of Europe, London, Paris, people would sweep out their houses and what do you do with that dirt? What do you do with that trash? And there was a guy called the rag and bone man, and he would come by and collect old bones and rags and even the dust you swept up, because sometimes he would find jewelry or coins. Sometimes the rag and bone man, who looked like the dirtiest, poorest man in town, sometimes they were the richest men in town.
That's interesting.
Because they made their money sifting through other people's trash.
Huh.
In a way, that's what Henry was doing. But he wasn't the richest man in town. He hadn't found any diamonds or anything yet. But he was a newfangled rag and bone man. Now, there's a clothing brand now called Rag and Bone, so don't get that confused. They're a pretty high-quality clothing brand.
That's fair.
I might be wearing one of their shirts now.
Hey, it's fair. So they bring him in, type A, and they just let him go. So there's no other issues. I don't know if they just picked him up for that probation violation to clear it, or I didn't see anything that they really did anything with him.
Because where was this from? Maryland? Where?
Yeah.
They're not going to extradite somebody back.
Right.
They're not going to pay for the transportation for somebody's lousy little probation violation.
So this was really just to bring him in for Sheriff Conway to get his first shot at the apple.
It was to question him. Yeah, that's exactly what it was. It was just an excuse to question. And I don't blame him.
And he's open.
He was open. He let him search my house. I don't blame him for that. I would have done the same thing. Truman Simons would have done the same thing. Most of the good detectives I know would have done the same thing. We got an excuse. Let's get him in here. Let's see what he says.
Yeah.
He might lead us to something. He might crack.
So they let him go, and he goes back to the house of prayer, back to working. But
they didn't leave him alone.
They didn't.
Conway just bugged the hell out of him.
Yes.
Made it to where Faye didn't want him around, because Conway or Phil Ryan was out there messing with him all the time.
Right.
Wanting to come in and talk with him, going out and screwing with him on jobs, getting them fired from jobs. Mm-hmm. They turned Reuben into a school one time where they were re-roofing the school because Henry was working there. And they go, do you know that there's a killer He killed his own mother, and he's here working at this school. And they made Reuben fire Henry.
Wow, man.
Yeah, from that job.
From that
now,
job.
Reuben kept Henry and let him work other stuff, but he had to let him go from that job. And Reuben was always doing nice stuff like that for Henry, even though Conway was out there making life hell for Henry Lucas.
Yep.
Just because he had a hunch. And some of these guys, and this is where I have a problem with some law enforcement officers, they think their hunches are gold.
Yeah.
I get a hunch, I'm going to take it to the bank. Well, a lot of times what happens is they get a hunch, and then they reverse engineer it into a confession.
Well, yeah, they totally just
Yeah.
get tunnel vision, man, and that's the
Tunnel
only
vision.
suspect there could be.
And get a confession and reverse engineer the corroborating evidence, which is exactly what they did on Orange Socks, which is exactly what they did on Rita Salazar.
Yeah.
And if you haven't listened to those episodes yet, go back and listen to them.
They're good, man.
They're good because we dissect those confessions, and we still don't know who killed Orange Socks, but we know who she is now, Deborah Jackson.
Yes.
And she was finally identified thanks to DNA. And then Rita Salazar, we know who killed Rita Salazar now.
Yeah.
Yet we have a confession from Henry talking about shooting her, talking about what color sweater she was wearing, that she was carrying a purse or a billfold.
Shot with a 22.
Shot with a 22, described the car, pointed to the place where the body was dumped.
Yeah.
And yet we know for a fact he didn't do that case because the guy who really did it is now sitting in prison.
Yeah.
Proven he did it with DNA, plus he confessed to it.
Yeah.
And this guy really gave details only the killer can know. And he told all about Frank Key without even being asked about Frank Key.
Yeah.
Now, if you want a real confession, get him telling you stuff you hadn't asked about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And this blood draw was on March the 23rd, 1983.
Right.
And an interesting thing about this blood draw is that Henry was not under arrest.
Right. He totally consented to it. He just gave it to him.
He totally consented. They just said, hey, we want it. We want your blood. So
We want your blood.
We want your blood. So we can see if you're a killer. We can maybe use your blood as evidence. And did Henry say, where's your warrant? Or did Henry say no? Or did Henry say, okay, and then slip out of town that night? No, right. Henry consented. And they had to set it up for him to come in, have him tie off his arm, stick a needle in it, pull that blood out, all the time Henry knowing that this could be evidence on murders that they're looking at, and yet he consents to it. And this was before Henry started confessing to everything.
Right.
This is before he was forced to confess to Kate Rich. And I'm saying forced because Henry told me he was forced. He and Henry told Jim Maddox he was forced. That was always Henry's story. Even on his confession, he says, I'm confessing to this in a cold cell in Montague. And I got to point out again, they were keeping him so cold that he was shivering. Reuben Moore brought him a blanket, and they wouldn't let Henry have it. Now, I mentioned in one of the previous episodes, I think with Hugh, or with somebody, about how when Hugh saw him, how bad he smelled.
Yeah.
Well, I had the jails confused. When he was in Montague, that's when Conway kept him in this freezing cold cell with no clothes, no blanket, until he would confess, with them running in, tag teaming him, questioning him. All right? When Hugh saw him, that was in the Denton County Jail. That was when he smelled so bad.
Right, right.
And that's when they had been taking him out trying to find Becky's bones.
Yeah.
And he was sweaty. He hadn't been allowed to take a shower. They weren't treating him right in Denton either. And sending all these cops in, one after the other, after the other, after the other, to talk to him, with him smelling like a piece of dog poop somebody had stepped in. And his poor old glass eye.
His poor old little glass eye.
In a coffee lid jar, staring back at Hugh Ainsworth, I mean...
Or if it followed him when he moved,
yeah, it'd be funny.
Just followed him.
Yeah, I have a. Well, you've seen it. That statue I bought
of Jesus.
This tiny little village in Mexico. It's terracotta. Never seen anything like it. It was the only one they had, and they didn't know where it came from. And anyway, his eyes will follow you around the room.
I've seen it.
Yeah, you sit on the couch.
I can attest
he
that
looks
it is
down at
creepy.
you. Yeah.
It is creepy.
It's creepy.
He's watching you.
Yeah, he's watching you. So this was Henry Lucas's eye watching watching Hugh Ainsworth. Yeah.
Funny,
if
man.
you haven't listened to Hugh's episodes, go back and listen to him.
They're so good, man.
So good.
He's such a cool guy.
He's an interesting guy.
He's a national treasure.
You know, he is. He really is. He's been involved in so much. When he's called an eyewitness to history.
Yeah.
Oh my God, he saw every important event having to do with the Kennedy assassination.
Yeah.
So anyway, back to Henry Lucas and Sheriff Conway. So Henry consents to this blood draw. And now back then they didn't have DNA comparisons, so this blood draw was not saved for any kind of DNA. This blood draw was used to
type.
Yeah. And as it turned out, the blood on the car ended up being Henry's blood type.
Yes.
Not Kate Rich's blood type. Henry's blood type. I think we've already mentioned all the knives they found in the car, this kitchen set.
Yeah.
No blood on that. You know? The blanket they found, nothing to indicate any presence of anything having to do with Kate Rich. The glasses weren't Kate Rich. And then, so they take his blood. Do you want to go into talking about the purse now? You want to talk about his strange trip? We already talked about the trip. Where he
rolls out to Florida.
Yeah. Why would he go to Florida unless he really thought Becky was alive?
Right.
And then he gets there, and she's not there, so he turns around and heads straight toward Jack Smart's house in California.
Yep.
And then breaks down in New Mexico and has to get Reuben Moore to send him some money.
It doesn't make sense, Vic, and that's the thing with this case is there's so many oddities to it. So many oddities. But to get to the purse, so back on November 1982, a Texas Highway Department worker by the name of John Helmsley, who's out there inspecting bridges, overpasses, basically general roadways, is actually at this location where the purse is later found. And this is important because when he goes out, he doesn't find any purse. He does an inspection of the overpass area where the little culvert is, finds no purse. Fast forward to December 2nd, just a couple weeks later, a hunter by the name of Carrie Fink is out there hunting around 7 a.m. around this FM 1816 bridge. And sure enough, there's Kate Rich's blue straw purse. So we know it's hers because he does open it up and he finds her Medicaid card in there along with a bunch of miscellaneous stuff, some photos of her and whatnot. So it's interesting that she goes missing in September, and here we are in November, and that's when the purse is finally found. And it's even more interesting that just a couple weeks prior, we have someone who works for the state out there who does not find the purse.
Now, this is kind of weird. This is kind of weird. There was Kate Rich's purse because it had her Medicaid card in it, or Medicare, one of those cards. It was plastic. You know, it was what do you call it when they coat something in plastic?
Plastic coated.
Plastic coated. Hey, that's
no, don't you do?
No, there's a word for it.
I don't know.
I'll think of it. Anyway, it had plastic on it, so it was still in good shape. They could read her name on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. There were
some photos in their family
photos. He gave a statement on December the 2nd that he had found the purse.
Right.
Sometime in late November. But now he found the purse on December 2nd.
Mm-hmm.
His name is Carrie Fink. But this highway department worker named John Helmsley, he's saying, I was out there in November and I didn't see a purse. Now, wait a minute. Why are they talking to John Helmsley? Now, I know Stoneburg is a small place. Montague County is small. They noticed Henry because he was one of the only new people around, you know?
Yeah.
So everybody knew that Kate Rich was missing, more than likely. But why would you go out to a place and then call the police and say, hey, I was just out here in the woods and just want to report I didn't see anything?
It's a good question, Vic.
Right.
I mean, was that his job function, though, was just to inspect these roadways?
Yeah, but even if it was, do you get through and then you call the sheriff and say, hey, guess what, Sheriff? I'm out here on the road and I didn't find anything.
And you're
well,
correct.
what are you looking for? What
You're
do you mean you
correct.
didn't find anything? What are you looking for?
It is so odd.
It's odd. When did he give this statement, and why did they ask him? They
There's
had to have asked him about this after they found the purse.
So John Helmsley gives the statement on December 3rd. So one day after they find the purse, John Helmsley is brought in, and he throws that statement down that the last time he was out there inspecting in November, he did not find anything.
Well, no, that makes a little more sense, because if Carrie Fink found it on December 2nd, and the sheriff knows, hey, well, I know this guy named John Helmsley. He's a highway inspector. Let's see if he was ever out there inspecting that bridge and see if he saw anything like it. And that would have been taken on the next day, December 3rd. And he says, I didn't see it.
Right.
You know? And it was a distinctive looking, kind of blue straw, one of those plastic looking purses. Everybody knew it was Kate's purse. They found her glasses in that purse and her Medicare card.
The glasses were found close to it.
Close to it.
And all broken.
But they were her glasses.
They were.
Now, the glasses they found in Henry's car that had been abandoned out in Needles, California. And why was that car in Needles, California?
That's a good question, unless he was going out to see the Smarts.
Jack
See
Smart.
where Becky is.
Jack Smart lives in or around Needles, California. So what would he have been doing out there? But anyway, they take that blood and they find out that, gee whiz, this blood is Henry Lucas's type that we found in this car.
Mm-hmm.
It's not Kate Rich's type. Oh, my goodness. So, but here again, you've got law enforcement people seeing all these little disconnected facts and yet trying to put together a scenario.
Yeah.
Because the scenario, when they finally get Lucas to confess, well, it matches the blood on the car seat, even though that's not Kate's blood.
Right.
Henry says, I grabbed the knife and I stabbed her. She was in the passenger seat, so I just stabbed her in the gut, and she kind of leaned over and bled out.
Right.
Well, you know what? If she had leaned over and bled out, there would be blood in that car.
Yeah, I would say.
There would be
think
blood
so.
in that car that would be her blood, not Henry's blood.
Yeah.
They didn't find her blood in that car.
Nope. Not a
But
drop.
they still later managed to put that into the confession. Oh, I stabbed her right there where she would have bled out, where that big spot of blood is.
Yes.
That just bothers me. And I keep saying, if Phil Ryan were not involved in this, I would have no problem saying Henry didn't kill Kate Rich.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't believe Henry killed Kate Rich, except what gives me doubt is that Phil Ryan is involved. And I would hope that Phil Ryan wouldn't do something like this.
Right.
Because everything I've known about him and the few conversations I've had with him, he seems like an okay guy.
Yes.
I hope he wouldn't have participated in this with Sheriff Conway. I have a lot of questions. Man, I wish Phil Ryan would email us, promo@withvic.com. He's sheriff out in Decatur now. I think he's still sheriff in Decatur. And that's where Samuel Little is in jail.
Right.
This new big confessor, and he's being talked to by another Texas Ranger in Phil Ryan's jail. I wish Phil Ryan and I could talk. I want to ask him to close these gaps.
Yeah.
Fill in the gaps of information, like when did this happen? Why did this happen? How did it happen this way? Because right now it's still not making sense.
And I totally agree with you.
Because they find this purse before Henry confessed.
Right.
Now, if Henry had confessed and said, I was driving down the road and then I noticed her purse was still in the car, and I tossed it out the window and it went over this bridge. If he'd have confessed and then they went and found the purse, wow, that's
right.
Corroborating evidence. But that's not how it happened.
It's not.
It happened too much the way it happened with Boutwell. And I believe that Boutwell and Conway are cut from the same cloth. They're just that old-timey sheriff, and that's just the way it was done. And I want to put it in context. I don't want to be too bad on these guys, because that's the way law enforcement was, and the citizens accepted it. We didn't know about all of it. And what we did know, we accepted it. So, yeah, come on, Phil Ryan. Email me. Let's talk. Let's talk to some TV network about maybe sending me and you out to solve some of these things. Let's reopen them. You're a sheriff. You could get this information. Let's work on it together. Anybody I talk about on this show, send me an email. And if you want to be on this show, we'll have you on the show.
That'd be awesome.
Wouldn't it? Yeah, and I'm not going to take your stuff out of context. We'll give you free rein to say what you want. We're going to have to edit it some to take out the blank spots and the uhs and the things like that. But it'll basically be it, and we'll give you a thumb drive with it on there so that when you hear it, when it's posted later, you'll know that's what you said. So, I've said some things about Boutwell can't come on because he's dead. Prince could come on. I'd love to talk to Bob Prince. Phil Ryan can come on. I'd love to talk to Phil Ryan. If you can't come to Waco, we'll lose some sound quality, but we'll interview you over the telephone. So yeah, let's do that. Let's do that. Let's reopen these cases and let's get serious about it.
That'd be cool.
Come on, Bob Prince. Come on, Phil Ryan. Send me an email.
So
the purse.
The purse, man.
It bothers me. If Henry had just said, "Yeah, I threw the purse," and then they go, "Let's go find it," and they go and find it.
Totally different story.
Man,
right.
Smoking gun, bell ringer. That's it. But that didn't happen here.
Nope. They had all the evidence in hand.
And even though I think that Phil is probably a stand-up guy, I never knew Conway, and Conway's dead now.
Yeah.
Just like Boutwell is dead. And and Cappy Eads. I told a story about Cappy Eads the other day, and Cappy's dead now too, so I can't have Cappy on the show to explain why he said he couldn't be my friend anymore.
Oh.
Yeah, because I had exposed this, and I shouldn't have, right or wrong. Well, I did, and that's just the way it is. But it's too much the same.
Yeah.
This just reminds me too much of Boutwell. And even though what I know of Phil Ryan, I like him, I don't know Conway. And the things I've read about Conway, I don't like him.
Ooh.
And I can see Conway doing the same kind of crap that Jim Boutwell did by feeding this information. Now, the purse is already found.
Yes.
And then they get Henry to say, "Oh, I tossed out the purse."
Right.
Well, okay, well, the purse was there. But you had already found the purse. Tell me about something new.
Right.
Tell me something Henry said that you didn't already know, and you went out and confirmed it.
Yeah.
If there's anything on this Kate Rich case, do it. Do it. Tell us what it is. And we'll post it on our website.
Yeah. Sounds fair to me.
Thank you for listening to the Vic Feazell Show podcast. We're a primary source podcast. We don't just read about it and then talk about it. We talk about people we've known, things we've done. We're a primary source podcast. Leave a review. Sign up for our email list. And go visit our store. We have a page on www.vicfeazell.com.
He's checking your speed, he's checking it twice. You better be sober and you better drive nice. Trooper Bob's patrolling tonight. The law offices of Vic Feazell wish you a happy and laid-back holiday season. And if you've been injured by someone who wasn't driving laid back, don't call for just any lawyer. Call Vic Feazell. Drive laid back and lower your speed. 1-877 with Vic.
Principal offices in Waco and Austin, Texas.